What if I told you the Alice Cooper you know, the ghoulish solo artist, the undisputed master of shock rock, was actually born from a bitter betrayal? See, back in 1974, the original Alice Cooper band was one of the biggest acts in the world, and then they just imploded. From those ashes, one man took name, left his friends in the dust, and gambled everything on a nightmare. This is how the story of that gamble, the betrayal, led to one of the most legendary albums and iconic TV specials ever made. In the early 1970s, you had rock stars, then you had Alice Cooper. But here's the thing you need to get straight. Alice Cooper wasn't a person, it was a band of 5 high school buddies from Phoenix. Singer Vincent Furnier, guitarist Michael Bruce and Glenn Buxton, bassist Dennis Dunaway, and drummer Neil Smith. Together, they clawed their way to the absolute peak of the rock and roll world. The sound was forged in gritty Detroit rock, and the stage show was a cocktail of vaudeville and horror. It made them a global sensation. Albums like Love It to Death, Killer, and the #1 smash, $1 Billion Babies, turned them into bona fide superstars with hits like I'm 18 and the ultimate teen anthem, School's Out. Blasting from every radio, they became a household name and every parent's worst nightmare. They were shocking, they were theatrical, and for one brief, glorious moment, they were completely unbeatable. But just as they redefined what a rock show could be, the machine was about to grind to a screeching halt. The beginning of the end arrived on November 20th, 1973 with their 7th album, Muscle of Love. After a string of theatrical, cohesive masterpieces, this one felt a little different. The band decided to ditch the theatrics and get back to a more straightforward rock and roll sound, but in doing so, something essential got lost. A huge blow was the absence of their visionary producer, Bob Ezrin, the sonic architect behind their biggest triumphs. The official story was that Ezrin was sick, but the truth was even messier. Tensions between him and the band, especially with the guitarist Michael Bruce, had boiled over, and Ezrin walked away. Producers who stepped in just couldn't replicate that magic. And the result, an album that felt scattered. Instead of a unified concept, Muscle of Love dabbled in funk, soul, even Dixieland jazz. Critics picked up on a sense of fatigue, and while it's still a top 10 hit, the album lacked the grand theatrical punch of its predecessors. It just felt pedestrian. Alice himself later admitted, it's not complicated, there's not a lot of theatricality on it, it's just very basic rock and roll throughout. The album, meant to be a muscular show, ended up exposing the band that was rapidly losing its strength. The conflicts weren't just about the music. The relentless cycle of record pushed the band to its absolute limit. In a 2025 interview, Alice recalled, at the end of the Muscle of Love period, we were not on the same page lifestyle-wise. We were dysfunctional. Substance abuse was running rampant. Alice himself was deep in a struggle with alcohol and cocaine, and he admits these problems sidelined him for years. But the most tragic case was lead guitarist Glenn Buxton. His snarling signature riffs were the backbone of the band's sound. But by 1973, he was consumed by addiction. His health problems grew so severe that his role on the last 2 albums was minimal. Session guitarists Dick Wagner and Steve Hunter were secretly brought in to fill the void, a move that just highlighted how broken the group had become. Since they were all equal partners, every decision was a vote. But the once unified friends were now constantly fighting over money, songwriting credits, and the future of the Alice Cooper identity. The tour for Muscle of Love was the final nail in the coffin. Exhausted and divided, the band agreed to take a hiatus in the spring of 1974, a break they would never really come back from. It wasn't a dramatic firing or a big walkout. It was a slow, painful disintegration, as Alice put it. I never truly felt the band divorced. Rather, we separated. All the rest of the band members went off to work on their own solo projects. Singer Vincent Furnier and the manager, Shep Gordon, made a power move. It was a decision his former bandmates would see as the ultimate betrayal. He legally changed his name to Alice Cooper, effectively taking the band's identity as his own. With the original group on ice, Alice saw his chance, not just to keep going, but to build something even bigger and more theatrical, all on his own terms. His first move was brilliant. He reconciled with producer Bob Ezrin. Alice knew that to pull off this grand vision, he needed the man who'd helped shape the band's greatest moments. Ezrin came back, and he brought an army with him. Fresh off producing Lou Reed's dark concept album Berlin, Ezrin recruited the killer musicians from Reed's live band. This included the powerhouse duo of Dick Wagner and Steve Hunter, the exact same players who had secretly been propping up the old Alice Cooper band albums. With a new crew of virtuoso players and his creative partner Ezrin back in his corner, Alice wasn't the frontman anymore. He was the sole architect, and he was ready to bet everything on an idea that had been rattling around in his head for years. A trip into the nightmares of a boy named Steven. Released on March 11, 1975, Welcome to My Nightmare wasn't just a solo album, it was a full-blown rock opera. The concept, which grew out of a scrapped movie idea, tells the story of a boy named Steven trapped in a series of surreal, terrifying dreams. The recording sessions in Toronto and New York were buzzing with creative energy. Working with Ezrin and guitarist Dick Wagner as his main co-writers, Alice built a twisted narrative from the ground up. The album kicks off with the epic title track, an invitation into Steven's troubled mind. From there, it's a journey through the landscape of spiders, demons, and childhood fears. For the album's creepy crawly centerpiece, The Black Widow, Alice secured a ghostly, perfect narration from the master of horror himself, Vincent Price. But it wasn't all just horror. The album also gave us one of Alice's most timeless and unexpected hits, the hauntingly beautiful ballad Only Women Bleed. Originally sung by Dick Wagner's old band, it was reworked into a poignant story about an abused wife. It became a top 10 single, proving that Alice could deliver sensitivity just as powerfully as he could deliver shock. The album was a massive success, hitting number 5 on the Billboard charts and cementing Alice's new identity as a solo superstar. The kind of cover art by Drew Struzan perfectly captured the album's blend of fantasy and horror, becoming one of the most recognizable in rock history. The Betrayal had paid off. The Nightmare was a smash hit. With the album a certified hit, Alice and Shep Gordon planned the most audacious move yet. They were going to bring the Nightmare to life. First came the tour, a massive, mind-bending stage production that cost over $600,000, and the tour was a phantasmagorical spectacle with dancing skeletons, giant spiders, and a 9-foot-tall Cyclops, all choreographed down to the second. The show sold out arenas across the globe, visually searing the album's story into public consciousness. But they didn't stop there. On April 25th, 1975, ABC aired Alice Cooper, The Nightmare, a 1-hour primetime TV special. It was essentially the world's first long-form video music album, with Alice starring as Steven and Vincent Price reprising his role as the spirit of the nightmare. The special brought the album's cinematic horror story to a massive national audience. It was so groundbreaking that it won an Emmy for its editing and scored a Grammy nomination. A contra film of the tour, also called Welcome to My Nightmare, was released later that year, pushing the album's legacy even further. The gamble didn't just revitalize Alice's career, it completely refined it. It was no longer just the singer of the band, he was a multimedia horror icon. Alice Cooper soared to new heights. His former bandmates struggled to find their footing. Michael Bruce, Dennis Dunaway, and Neil Smith formed a band called Billion Dollar Babies, but they released just one album in 1977 before fading away. For decades, the story of the original Alice Cooper band seemed to be over for good. But time has a funny way of healing even the most deepest wounds. After years apart, the surviving members, Alice, Michael Bruce, Dennis Dunaway, and Neil Smith, reunited. In a stunning announcement, they revealed that on July 25th, 2025, they were releasing The Revenge of Alice Cooper, their first studio album together in over 50 years. Produced once again by the legendary Bob Ezrin, the album even features a posthumous appearance from Glenn Buxton, thanks to unreleased recording Dennis Dunaway had kept for decades. Speaking about the reunion, Alice said it felt like they were simply making the very next album after Muscle of Love, as if no time had passed at all. The story of the Alice Cooper Band is one of rock's most fascinating tales of triumph, fracture, and eventual reunion. What do you think of Muscle of Love? Was Alice's solo move a cold-hearted betrayal or a necessary evolution? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoy deep dives into classic rock history, make sure you like this video and subscribe for more. If you're enjoying the series on Alice Cooper, I also done videos on all the albums that came before this, and you can find all of them in a playlist, which is right here. And in the meantime, thanks for watching. This is the JC CD and Vinyl channel. In this channel, I talk about albums in my collection. Please like this video. Helps me with the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe and all that good stuff. I do all stuff related to rock and metal, and I will see you in the next one.